Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to take a look back at the most recent week of the Overwatch League season, week 17 of this season, and we're going to talk about everything that happened and look at my picks and kind of look back, discuss what there was that went down. So let's real quickly throw up my picks from this past week. As you can see, I went 9-5 and 1-1 on the big pick games. It was quite an interesting week. Definitely some stuff that I was not expecting. Some upsets, some teams getting wins that may be surprising some people. So, yeah, let's jump in. Let's talk about them. Let's start with Friday. We had two matches. I will warn you, I missed a lot of the games this week. I was pretty busy this weekend, so I did not manage to watch a lot of the games, but I'll kind of talk about them as I kind of know things that happened, and I'll kind of cover things as I see them, and we'll just kind of talk about them. But let's start Friday. Toronto Defiant getting their win over the London Spitfire. Pretty good weekend for the Defiant, all things considered. Of course, they win their game against the Spitfire, which, you know, kind of to be expected, since the London Spitfire haven't won a game. So that's a thing. But it was a pretty good showing for the Defiant, all things considered. They're looking like they're getting a little bit better as the season progresses, which is nice to see. Definitely an improvement from them after a pretty up and down start of the season. They've managed to kind of stabilize a bit as the season has progressed, so definitely good for them. They still have another weekend of matches, so we'll see how they finish off, but good win for them. But the big surprise on Friday, of course, was the Vancouver Titans getting their first win of the season, a 3-0 sweep over the Boston Uprising, and not only winning, also giving the people of Canada their breadsticks, all in the same day. What a day for the Vancouver Titans. Good for them. The Boston Uprising, pretty disappointing, all things considered. They had that one win over the Paris Eternal at the beginning of this tournament cycle, and that was it. They didn't do anything else. Didn't manage anything else. It's been pretty rough for them, and I think that that's one of the things I have thought about the Uprising, is that they're a good team, not a great team, and I think that they have a pretty good... They're a pretty good team, but they're not an incredible team. And when they go up against some of these opponents, they're definitely going to drop games like this. But maybe they shouldn't. It's an interesting team. I really don't know what to make of this Uprising team, because I think they're good, but I don't think they're really good enough to do anything come playoffs or play-in times. And they didn't guarantee a spot in the playoffs this weekend, which should have been easy. They should have been able to have a good record this tournament cycle, and they didn't. And I think that, to me, is just kind of the sign that the Uprising are not really what we thought they were. They're a pretty mediocre team. They don't really have much of anything going for them. I think you kind of wonder where you put them. I know I put them below New York in my power rankings, and I definitely think that that was the correct placement. I don't think the Uprising are that good. And I think they have potential for high highs, but they don't seem to hit them very often. It was a weird game. The Titans managed to get the win. Good for them. Finally getting over that hump. It's not a series I got to watch, but I know that it was a pretty good game from Fried Wiener, and I think that there were also a lot of things to be excited about for the Vancouver Titans finally this season from that game. So, all things considered, very interesting series. I'm not really crazy about either of these teams. I'm not very excited by either of them. I think they're both pretty weak. And so this result to me is just kind of like good for the Titans, but overall doesn't really mean a whole lot. But let's move on to Saturday, where the first of my big picks took place. The NYXL taking on the Philadelphia Fusion. And finally, as I've predicted, the Philadelphia Fusion get a win over the NYXL. For whatever reason, they just couldn't do it. As many times as they tried, they failed. But third time's the charm, as they say. Fusion finally get a win over the NYXL. The Fusion have looked very good so far this tournament cycle. They are looking like they're finally getting their groove back. They're finally getting their stuff back together. So I'm very happy with what we've seen from the Fusion so far. and I think they really are improving. I think the NYXL are also improving. I think it's a shame that they had to play kind of a tough schedule this go around, because it really was a brutal schedule. And they got the win over the Shanghai Dragons, which most people didn't expect, of course. You shouldn't have expected it, I think, but they managed to do it. But it was a very tough schedule, and the fact that they even managed to get 2 wins in the first week was pretty impressive. So, all in all, a pretty good series, I think, both of these teams. But the Fusion look a lot better. I think the meta's finally favoring them. I actually think Wrecking Ball is a very good look for the Fusion, because I think Mono actually is a pretty good Wrecking Ball, so that's always something nice to see. So I'm a big fan of what the Fusion have been doing. I think they're getting hot at the right time. It's going to be a real nice competition for that final playoff spot from the Eastern region. It's really like a 4-horse race between the Dragons, the Dynasty, the Hunters, and the Fusion. 2 of those teams will obviously be guaranteed to get in there. Dragons already have a spot locked up, and then it comes down to the Dynasty and the Hunters, and which of those 2 teams will have the higher point total. That'll be determined next week. Chengdu is a pretty easy schedule, so they should manage to get in, but we'll see. But overall, pretty good weekend for the Fusion, I think, despite what happened on Sunday. There's some very good teams here, and so I think it's always interesting to kind of see. But the Eastern region really has kind of some high-level teams we're seeing here at the end. So that's a very nice thing to see. But let's move on to the Seoul Dynasty, losing to the Shanghai Dragons. It was a close series, 3-2. Dragons finally kind of get another win after their bad weekend last weekend. But hey, good teams lose games. It's fine. I've been pretty happy with the Dynasty so far. But the hurdle that they have not been able to get over this season is the Dragons. They still haven't done it. It's one of the things that I am concerned about for the Dynasty. How good of a team can you be if you can't beat the best team in your region? Even in the West, the Dallas Fuel have lost to most of the teams in their region. Now, not all of them, of course. But, you know, the Fuel are a 5-loss team. They have a loss to the Eternal. They have a loss to the Justice. They have a loss to the Shock, to the Outlaws. I think they have a loss to... Oh, I don't even remember who the other loss was to. Maybe maybe they lost to the Gladiators, too. I don't remember exactly. Oh, they lost to the Reign. Doy. So they've lost to some of the teams around them. So, like you know that that's a thing. But the Dragons, you know, the Dynasty have been able to beat the Dragons. The Hunters have. The Fusion have. The NYXL have. The Spark have. But the Dynasty, if they're the second best team in the region and they can't get a win over the Dragons, it doesn't give me a ton of confidence. They may be able to beat every other team in the league. They cannot beat the Shanghai Dragons. It is a problem that I think needs to be figured out if they want to actually have any possibility of winning this season. Is they need to be able to beat the Shanghai Dragons. They've made no tournament appearances. They haven't beaten the Shanghai Dragons. It's definitely my biggest kind of issue with this team. I think they're really good, but that's the hurdle they've yet to climb, and I need to see it before I'm ready to give them any realistic shot at the playoffs. Final APAC match, though, from Saturday was the Chengdu Hunters beating the Guangzhou Charge. To be expected, we didn't really learn a lot. Hunters still look good. Charge don't look very good. It is what it is. That's kind of to be expected. As we move into the Western region for Saturday, the Dallas Fuel had a pretty interesting series. The London Spitfire, 3-1 series for them. Spitfire managed a map win. So still winless, but they managed a map win over the Fuel, which is not too bad, considering the Fuel are a pretty good team. But once again, it's the type of thing, you have a good team against a bad team, it's the result you expect. Spitfire did a little bit better than expected, but overall, not good enough. And the Fuel still come away with the win. The interesting series for Saturday, in my opinion, was the Mayhem taking the Reign to 5 maps. It was a 3-2 win for the Reign. We saw the return of OG for the Mayhem. And, you know, he didn't look that bad, and we'll talk more about them when we get later on, but it is definitely good to see the Mayhem kind of gain their footing again, get back to where they were earlier in the season. It's a little late now. Their season is very, very, very much in the balance. It's going to be very difficult for them to make it into the playoffs. They basically have to play perfectly from here on out. They can't lose any of their remaining matches, and that's pretty tough. They have some good opponents on their schedule, so it seems very unlikely we see the Reign make the playoffs, but they've done pretty well so far. And all things considered, the Reign struggled a little bit against the Mayhem. And the Reign are a very good team. They're arguably the best team in North America right now, or in the Western region right now. And they struggled against a good, a not very good Mayhem team up until this point. Meta's changed, it's helped them a little bit, but it's very interesting to see. And good win for the Reign, though, keeping themselves kind of on pace with the Fuel for best record in the Western region. And all in all, I'm happy with what I've seen from the Reign so far. And I think they still look to be potentially the best team in the region. The other Saturday match in the Western region, the final match, was the Toronto Defiant beating the Washington Justice 3-0. I'm so sick of this Justice team. They never have made me excited. Every time I believe in them, they let me down. Every time I stop believing in them, they bring me back in. It's painful. It hurts, and I hate it. And I just want things to be normal with this team. Can you please, for once, Justice, just be what we think you are, please? Like, is it that hard to just be like good? Please? Like, I don't know what you're doing. I still think they have a lot of the same problems, obviously, but this is good from the Toronto Defiant. Always good to see a team winning games that they should be winning. But it's also good to see a team winning a game that seems like an upset, and I think that's what this was. The Defiant don't seem to be as good as a lot of these other teams are, but overall good weekend from them, beating the Spitfire, beating the Justice. They got, there were games they had to play, they won them, and I've been impressed so far with what I've seen from the Defiant. I think they still have their issues. I don't think they're a perfect team. I still think they kind of lack some of the flash a lot of other teams do. I think Aspire brings a lot of flash, and so he has improved his team a lot, and his presence has made this team better. But I think this is a team that is in no real position, I think, to make any kind of deep run as we get to the end of the season. But I think they are locked into the play-ins because of this weekend. So it's a good weekend for them, all things considered. I know there's a lot of teams that are locked into the play-ins, and there's only 2 spots left. And it's a battle between the Eternal, the Uprising, and the Mayhem for that final spot. I know the Fuel are in the playoffs themselves. Reign, Shock, Outlaws, Gladiators, Justice, Defiant, all locked in for the play-ins. So the Western Region playoffs, I think, should be pretty good. The play-in tournament should be pretty good. There's a lot of good teams in there, so I'm excited to see that, but I'm getting a little off topic. Good for the Defiant. Justice, still struggling. Don't know what to make from them. They need to do better at making decisions and having an in-game leader, because that seems where they're struggling the most. And they're a team with too much talent to be losing games like that. Moving on to Sunday, Seoul Dynasty, reverse sweep over the Philadelphia Fusion. Dynasty got a lot of reverse sweeps this season. That is one of the things that I actually have a ton of faith and hope for with this Seoul Dynasty team. I think a lot of people think about reverse sweeps and kind of see them as a negative for a team. In a lot of cases, reverse sweeps seem like they're in matches that they shouldn't happen in. But reverse sweeps are incredibly difficult because winning 3 maps in a row is hard. Winning 3 maps in a row after going down 2-0 is even harder. And so the fact that the Dynasty have done this a lot shows me that they're a resilient team. They don't give up. They have a lot of fight in them. they don't really care what the stakes are. They will try and they will continue to fight and they will do everything they can to get a win. And there's a lot of teams I don't see that attitude from. There's a lot of teams where just like a map loss snowballs into a map loss, and then it's the third map and they just boomed already. Dynasty are not that way. And so I'm very happy with what we've seen from the Dynasty so far. And I think that this win is a huge win for them. The Fusion have had a lot of... This is the second time they've been reverse swept so far this season. That's pretty worrisome, because getting reverse swept is pretty bad at times. So I think the Fusion are a good team, and this to me is a bad loss, but it's also a really good Dynasty team. So I'm not too concerned about it, but it is definitely, for me, my takeaway here is the Dynasty did something really, really good, and the Fusion just fell victim to it. Definitely would like to see the Fusion clean up a little bit more, but this to me makes me feel more concerned about the Fusion's potential path into the postseason. If they have to go through the Dynasty, I don't feel confident in the Fusion to beat them, but we'll see what happens. But good win for the Dynasty, of course. Reverse sweeps are always nice, and the Dynasty have cemented themselves as potentially having, guaranteeing themselves to at least be tied for the best record in the Overwatch League. Worse differential than the Shanghai Dragons, and of course not as many points, but that's a good regular season if you can finish the season 12-4. So good on them. Let's move on though. Chengdu Hunters with a win over the NYXL was a 3-1. New York won control, and then that was just kind of it. It all just went downhill from there. Chengdu Hunters managed to win the series against the NYXL. I'm not really surprised there. Chengdu look very good. As long as Wrecking Ball's in the meta, they should be one of the top teams in the league. New York, they run Wrecking Ball. They're not awful on it, but they're not Chengdu. So, to be expected, unfortunately, for me as an NYXL fan. They finished season 7-9, the NYXL, -3 differential. They still have a path into the postseason, but it really just comes down to what happens with the Hangzhou Spark, and it comes down to what happens with the NYXL potentially getting tournament points. That's really the only chance they have. They have to make a tournament and potentially get points, or they have to hope that I guess it doesn't even matter, because the Spark, the worst they could be is 7-9 -2. The NYXL would have to make the tournament, get at least 1 point to surpass the Spark. So it's looking a little rough for them. Season's probably over for them, but there are still paths, and I think the NYXL have definitely improved throughout the season, but it was just too little too late for them. Chengdu, certainly a scary team going forward, so feel good about them. Shanghai Dragons beat the Guangzhou Charge. It was a 3-1. It's to be expected. Dragons are a better team. It's just what they do. They have been better than the Charge all season. It's not a surprise to see them win this game. To me, didn't really learn anything. Let's move on to the Western region. Florida Mayhem end their losing streak, get a win over the Boston Uprising. Rough loss for Boston, as I was saying before. This was a bad tournament for them. They should have been winning the games they won. You know, like, they beat Paris, a game you would expect them to win, or expect them to lose. They lose to the Shock, a game you would expect them to lose to, whatever. Then they lose to Vancouver and Florida, two teams that had not won a game. Vancouver hadn't won a game since 2020, and the Mayhem hadn't won a game since May. Right? Like, these are two teams that weren't winning games, and the Uprising lost to both of them. And it wasn't particularly close either time. They were swept by the Titans, and I think it was a 3-1 loss to the Mayhem. Like, that was a bad performance in the Uprising. Good on the Mayhem for getting the win. Very happy for them. I think that they are a team that has too much talent to struggle that much. But the Uprising should not have lost these matches. They should not have had a poor weekend like this. This should have been an easier tournament cycle for them. They should have had a 3-1 record easily after beating the Paris Eternal. They fell flat. And that's really all there is to it. I have lost a lot of my confidence in the Uprising. I don't think they really are a team that I'm expecting great things out of going forward. So, yeah. To me, pretty bad performance all in all from the Uprising. Good win for the Mayhem. Happy for them. Happy to see OG finally getting some success again. And yeah. This is one of my second big pick of the weekend, though. This was the second Western Region game from Sunday. The Atlanta Reign with a 3-1 win over the Dallas Fuel. Finally, the Atlanta Reign get that win over the Fuel. They've been trying to get it all season. Comes kind of in the game that doesn't really matter because the Fuel are, you know, the Fuel. And they've basically stopped doing the stuff they're good at, and they're trying to kind of learn from these wrecking ball compositions. So we've seen this stuff go on and on and on. So, but the Reign managed to come in and get the win where they needed it. They finished this tournament cycle 4-0, which is good for them. Definitely a team I think looks pretty good going into the Countdown Cup. Will they win the whole thing? I don't know. I don't even know who's going to make it at this point in time. I don't think Shanghai or Dallas are going to make it. I think Dallas finished 2-2 because they lost to Paris and they lost to the Reign. So like they might not make it. Shanghai might not make it. They're 2-2 with a worse differential and a loss to the NYXL. So it's really open, these tournaments. Like neither of the two champions might make it. So it'll be interesting to see. Reign definitely are among the favorites. Chengdu is among the favorites. I'm excited for the Countdown Cup because it is going to be new faces for the most part, and we might get teams that we haven't seen yet. So I'm intrigued and I'm interested. So I'm very excited to see what happens for this one. But good game for the Reign. I think Pelican basically cemented himself as Rookie of the Year. He was just dominant. His Pharah play was incredible. His Tracer play was really good when he was playing it. Pelican's really, really good. He's an incredible player. He's one of the best players, I think, in the league. Definitely a highlight on that DPS role. And a fantastic win for the Reign. Happy for them. Good to see them finally get that win over the Fuel, which has just been so elusive for them all season. Final match of the weekend was a 3-0 victory for the Washington Justice over the Vancouver Titans. Definitely a rough weekend for them and a rough stage for them, but they finally get a win this tournament cycle. Keeps them finishing, they finish with a winning record on the season, 9-7 plus 3, so they don't get that 800 record. This team's too talented, though, to be finishing the season like this. I think this is a disappointing season when you consider where this team was at the beginning of the season, or where people thought they'd be at the beginning of the season. They are a team that struggled a lot. They struggled a lot in the meta changes. They struggled a lot in the hero pools. They struggled a lot in the early weeks of meta changes, especially. So I would like to see the Justice make changes as we kind of get into the offseason in terms of how they structure their team and what they focus around. But it's too late for that now. It's a really talented roster that struggled a lot, but even they were not weak enough to fall to the Vancouver Titans. But hey, the Titans got breadsticks twice this weekend, so who's going to complain? Good on them. That's going to be it, though, for me today. I've been talking a little while, so I missed you guys, so I wanted to give you a little bit extra long video today, but that is all for me for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed, consider liking and subscribing for more like it in the future. But that's all for now. So I hope you're all staying safe and staying healthy. And until next time, bye-bye.